What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to EP09. So, I recently caught the latest episode of Hany Rambod's The Truth podcast, where he brought on Chris Bumstead, his client of course, and they addressed a lot of things in this interview. Chris gave a really good recap of what he went through in the 2022 season. He discussed everything from injuries to anxiety, business. But the other thing they also discussed is the possibility of Chris moving to the open class for a show, and this is what Chris had to say about it all.
I always say I would never push myself on certain things and train at a certain level and do anything throughout like a year or 2 years time to be in the open. Like I don't want to push for a year to be in the open, but I would love to peak for an open show. Maybe 1 year if time allows it, my health allows it, and we're just like, I'm in shape post Olympia or something to really see what my physique would look like. If for like 2 weeks we just fed me up, pushed the limits, carved up really heavy for it, and I stepped on stage at like 248 maybe,
and you're going into it with a
250.
completely different mindset.
And
you're not going
just
into
for fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So not an Olympia type thing, but just not a big show, but something that would just be a basic open pro show is what you're talking about?
maybe, yeah.
So after listening to this, in my opinion, I don't think Chris is speaking confidently about really wanting to do an open show. And I'm not very confident that he'll actually do it. And here's why. The idea of Chris coming in and really only doing a couple of weeks worth of a carb up or an overfeed kind of scenario in order to get bigger for an open show, I don't think Chris would come in looking as crisp, for one. And while I do think Chris can hang with anyone out there in bodybuilding, I think on stage, well, I don't think Chris is getting on a bodybuilding stage unless he's confident that he's going to win. Now, could Chris win an open show against, say, a top-tier Olympian? And we have to compare him against these top-tier Olympians, being a 4-time Classic Physique champ, we have to. So, could Chris win against a top-tier Olympian? Like, for example, would Chris be able to beat someone like Samson Dauda or Andrew Jacked or Nick Walker? Even if he can't beat them, is he comparable to them? And look, I would have to see them side by side, but maybe he could with no weight restriction. He's 230 pounds on stage now, but would Chris really take the risk of having anything less than first place on his bodybuilding resume at this point? Because the fact is, Chris is not only a Classic Physique champion, but he's honestly achieved legend status at this point. The problem that Chris would face is, you're only as good as your last show, and that's the reality of bodybuilding these days. Now, if he took a year to train for it, yeah, I think he could do well and he could win. It's Chris Bumstead. But Chris has already been injured twice in his quad and in his bicep. He has an autoimmune disease, and he's honestly proven himself more than enough at this point. If I was Chris, I would keep my legacy as a living legend in Classic, but let me know in the comments what you guys think. Should Chris go and do an open show even just for fun, or should Chris just stick to Classic? Now, one thing the Classic division did do when it was introduced was really move forward tighter midsections in bodybuilding overall. And Hunter Labrada has begun the first phase of fine-tuning his physique, which includes bringing in his midsection. Hunter has been practicing vacuums directly after his fasted cardio in the morning. He's training abs 3 or 4 times a week, and he's primarily eating whole foods again. During his full day of eating video recently released on his YouTube channel, Hunter says that all the liquid diet was something that progressed over a year period where he was doing, 6,000 calories a day over that period of time. Food just wasn't agreeing with him anymore, and Hunter being a true bodybuilder, he thought he was doing whatever it took to get in those calories and keep making progress. But the big difference in this prep and previous preps for Hunter is that this is the first prep he's entering where putting on overall size is not the main goal. Hunter is refining his physique to bring a more streamlined package to the stage, similar to where Nick Walker is right now. At this stage in their bodybuilding careers, the size is there. Getting bigger won't help them place higher. So, overall, I think this new plan of Hunter's is really going to help, and I was critical of Hunter leading up to the 2022 Olympia. This new plan, I'm feeling pretty confident in him. He seems like he's making the right moves to really level up. So, let's see how Hunter does in the execution of this plan. I'm looking forward to a physique update in the future. Well, there's been no shortage of physique updates from Nick Walker leading up to the Arnold, as always, but there's definitely something a little bit different about Nick's physique this time around. And look, let me explain. If there's one thing that Nick is known for, it's delivering on his promises. And Nick said early in his prep that he was going to do two things. He said he was going to bring a more refined overall physique to the Arnold stage, and he said this will be his best look to date. And you know, Nick thinks his best look to date so far was actually his 2021 Arnold Classic look, which, you know, I can agree with. His midsection definitely looked its best at that show. But this time around, I think we're going to see a combination of Nick's waistline from the 2021 Arnold Classic and his conditioning at the 2022 Olympia. And I think that's what's going to be different about Nick at this show. Balance, symmetry, aesthetics. There's many out there that think Nick will never have those things. And no, Nick is not blessed with the cleanest lines or a naturally tawny waist. But I talked about refinement earlier in this video, and I think Nick has done it. The judges want to see progression from show to show, and I think they're going to see it in Nick at the Arnold Classic. So while everyone is working on refining their physiques and not worrying about putting on more size, Breon Ansley is definitely putting some weight on. And I gotta say, the weight on him really does look impressive so far. Breon tipped the scales at 216 this week, and he's not planning on gaining too much body fat, so we'll see how far he goes in weight. But these physique updates, I mean, man, I really do think moving to 212 is going to pay off for Breon. He looks so much more 3D. His X-frame is improved. The depth to his back is improved. His shoulders and arms especially have improved. And you know, just structurally, his lats just look like they insert so low with this amount of weight on. And his waist is still tight. So we're seeing very significant improvements from Breon, and in a relatively short time after the Olympia. Imagine what he'll look like in 6 months from now. Anyone else gunning for that 212 title better get to work, because Breon is definitely catching up, and I think he's going to blow right past a lot of the competition and make 212 a really exciting division this year. Anyway, that's it for me in this video, you guys. Thank you for tuning in to EP09. Be sure to like and subscribe.